We want people coming into our country who love our people. This guy's screaming, we want Roy Moore. He's right. So get out and vote for Roy Moore. Do it. Do it.
CNN was forced to walk back a story about Donald Trump Jr.
Oh, thank you, CNN. Thank you so much.
The fires in Southern California now stretching more than 150 miles. President Trump now declaring a major disaster in the state, ordering federal aid to the areas.
228,000 people hired in the month of November. The unemployment rate stuck right there at 4.1%. That is the lowest in some 17 years.
He will make America proud again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America safe again.
Social media.
Look who's here this morning with us, Ebony K. Williams.
They were excited Ebony K. Williams was here. That's why they were just totally focusing on that. They weren't worried about anything else.
That's right. And Greg, we're excited that you're here too, but you're kind of old hat.
I am old hat. But
I got to tell you, I'm so excited, guys. This is really great. Thank you for sharing the couch with me this morning.
Of course. We're excited to have you here. There was a great speech last night, and there's a great game today at 3 o'clock.
118th meeting of the Army-Navy game.
That's right.
In Philadelphia. It's going to be exciting.
Wait. Who you guys got?
Well,
Will?
He wore his Navy tie.
It looks like I could be.
We know who won last year.
A little bias here.
We know who won last year. It was the Army.
Yes.
Every 15th year we win, and we won last year. We're going to win again this year, though, too, I think.
There's going to be a lot about that. But by the way, there was a rally.
There'll be no kneelers at that.
I heard about that. A little bit. I believe the President of the United States.
That's right. 8 o'clock last night in Pensacola. They call it, Cliff, you told me, Florida-Bama. I mean, it was in Pensacola, Florida, but right on the line, the border of Alabama. The President gave a rousing, it was part of his campaign speech there in Pensacola. Listen to a portion of it up front.
We're going to speak straight to the American people and cut right through the fake news media. By the way, did you see all the corrections the media's been making? They took this fraudster from ABC, they suspended him for a month, and then CNN apologized just a little while ago. They apologized. Oh, thank you, CNN. Thank you so much. You should have been apologizing for the last 2 years. We're going to have safety again. Because America is more than just a place on a map. America is a nation. America is a family. We want the strongest borders you've ever seen. We're going to have such borders. We'll have borders on top of borders. Oh, these resistors resist. Hillary resisted, and you know what happened? She lost the election in a landslide. This is a rigged system. This is a sick system from the inside. This guy's screaming, we want Roy Moore. He's right. We need a Republican in the Senate. We need more of them. You know the yearbook? There was a little mistake made. She started writing things in the yearbook. Gloria Allred. Anytime you see her, you know something's going wrong. So get out and vote for Roy Moore. And I can think of no better Christmas present for the American people than giving you a massive tax cut. Only one thing missing, the words Merry Christmas. They're using those words again. Do you notice? They're using those words again.
So, Ebony, this was classic Trump last night.
Oh, sure. I call it the President Trump Direct Connect. He kind of opened with talking about how this is his very successful method of just bypassing a lot of mainstream media and going straight to the people. And for whatever you think of the message itself, you cannot argue with the effectiveness, the ability to get in front of these massive audiences, as he's done for the past 2 years and some change now, and draw on that energy. It's absolutely magnetic.
Pete mentioned Florida. Let's make no mistake here. This is as close to Alabama and campaigning for Roy Moore as he could. That whole area is basically the same area. Even though the Floridians in Pensacola can't vote, half of that audience was from Alabama. It's only a 20-mile drive for many of them. And, you know, he talked about get out the vote. Let me tell you, he's trying to rally them because this is, for the first time in Alabama's history in a long time, somewhat of a close race.
For reasons we know. And as someone, I think we all do public speaking at some level, you watch that almost as a performance. The walking away from the podium and the clapping and the cheering and the way he goes on prompter and off. But he hit all the themes that has made him popular, continue to be popular with his base, hitting the fake news, talking about borders and sovereignty, the rigged system, tax cuts, Merry Christmas. There were Merry Christmas signs everywhere there. As much as he's pursuing tax cuts and policies, his presidency has been a cultural critique presidency. I've called him a see something, say something president. You see things happening in our culture, and he comments on it. And if you go around to folks that have supported him, you can look at the presidential popularity polls. His supporters are more enthusiastically supportive of him today than they were before, regardless of what the so-called mainstream.
He loves this. This is Friday night. He loves working on Friday nights. It's been a few months, I think since September that he did this. But the difference now is he's really driving that America First theme. It's on the heels, of course, of his big Asian trip. He's getting a lot of pushback for this America First, the Jerusalem thing. We're going to talk about this. But let's listen to him talking about America First last night.
We believe the United States military is the greatest force for justice in the history of the world, and we are going to take care of it. We believe that every American should stand for the national anthem. We don't sing a global anthem. Our troops don't wear a foreign uniform. We proudly sing the Star-Spangled Banner. Our brave troops fight and die for the red, white, and blue. And we protect and preserve the American Constitution that we cherish.
So a very receptive audience for once. He's not getting pushback, but he's taking a lot. What do you think about that?
Well, listen, that American First, just going back to his signature campaign issue, right, for those who are still confused as to how President Trump was successful back in November of last year, look no further, right, than this type of example. Again, obviously, not every single American moving forward with that same state of mind. But as you say, Pete, his base stronger than ever. I don't really think the president feels a need to expand necessarily the quantity, but the enthusiasm of his existing base, I think, has served him incredibly well this first year.
It's a good point. He continues to relitigate common themes that are successful for him. The left is full of globalists, elitists, open borders. You know, they favor illegal over legal. At least that's the sense among so many. And the narrative, he says, listen, I'm for our veterans, I'm for our police officers, I'm for standing for the national anthem. By the way, there'll be no kneelers, I'm quite certain, at the Army-Navy game today.
They'll be standing
for
each
sure.
other, and we'll talk about that.
He watches the resistance continue against him, and that only feeds and propels him and his own supporters. The question will be, when it comes to 2020, ultimately, I think, and he talked a lot about jobs last night, jobs and trade.
Well, the economy,
that'll matter.
It absolutely is the best thing going right now, in my estimation. And really, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, it's hard to argue with where the market is. It's hard to argue where people's 401ks are. And when the economy is doing as well as it is right now, it makes it very difficult to have a counter argument that's effective. And so far, on the other side of the aisle, they've not been able to tap into anything consistent or effective.
That's right. We're going to have Brian Bremberg on the program, an economics professor. He's going to talk about the 2.2 million jobs that have been created in this country since this administration, the 228,000 jobs that came just in November, the manufacturing jobs that have come back, which is what he talked about doing. Hey, we want to make things in America again. If he can do that and continue to do that, that'll be a very successful
You're leaving
theme.
one important thing from last night, though, that we need to get to quickly, and that is the immigration. What happened out in San Francisco, Kate Steinle, that verdict, and the president certainly addressed it. Here's what he had to say.
You saw what happened with beautiful Kate Steinle. It was a total miscarriage of justice. She was killed by this guy, an illegal alien who had been deported 5 times and convicted 7 times of felonies. And people come in, and they're not necessarily good, like the man that ran over, the animal that ran over many people in New York City the other day. Chain migration that costs taxpayers billions and billions of dollars, and sanctuary cities that set free violent criminal aliens all over our country and protect them. We have to end chain migration.
So clearly, he's using this also as a, push for his funding for the wall. But Ebony K. Williams, you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
Is this going to be something that's played out and litigated in the court of public opinion for months to come?
Of course it is. I mean, we have absolutely seen a consistent, outrageous reaction. Again, beyond politics, this is a human issue, okay? You're talking about a young lady who lost her life due to someone who was kicked out of our country 5 different times. There's just no questions around it. And so, therefore, the federal government now having to come in with federal charges to seek justice because the state failed, the state of California, it's a bad narrative for California as it relates to immigration. Not legal immigration, but plainly illegal immigration.
Is it also a bad narrative for Democrats? It almost feels like, Republicans are from Mars and Democrats are from Venus. You've got Republicans talking about ending chain migration, borders on top of borders, defunding sanctuary cities. Yet Democrats are saying our red line on a funding bill is DACA. Now, I get DACA's different. Kids who brought here.
DACA is different. But you actually make a good point, though, Pete. The problem is the Dems have not been able to coalesce a compelling narrative on the side of legal immigration. That's actually what they should be doing. If they want to get Americans, talk about first responders, talk about law enforcement that come from immigrant communities. You got to talk about the positives of legal immigration, because on the other side, the president is effective in talking about the dangers of illegal immigration.
Yeah, you know who's not talking about it this morning? The failing New York Times. So I opened up my failing New York Times and I looked on the front page. There's got to be some coverage of the speech, especially because it was in Florida, close to Alabama. Roy Moore. I had to look all the way to A13.
It was a late rally. It was a late rally. I mean,
they never put anything late on the front page. Okay, sorry.
And by the way, we're waking everybody up because there was so much in this speech. We're going to be talking a lot about it.
Yeah.
And certainly, I think still the biggest takeaway of that speech last night was the fact that he said the system was rigged from the beginning. He campaigned on it. And we're literally right now talking about 3 failures of the mainstream media on the reporting as it relates to this.
Seeing the manifestation of that right now. Yeah, we'll keep talking about it for sure. Well, the numbers are in and the economy is booming under President Trump.
We've created 2.2 million new jobs. Factories are coming back to our country. We have a long way to go. We're going to do much better than this.
But President Obama is taking the credit. So who really deserves it?
Plus, Tommy Lauren and Dan Bongino.
Well, new jobs numbers are in and the economy is booming.
We've created 2.2 million new jobs. Factories are coming back to our country. In November alone, you saw this today, we added 228,000 jobs. And honestly, we have a long way to go. We're going to do much better than this, and I've been saying it, including another 33,000 new jobs in manufacturing.
Here to weigh in, professor at the King's College in Manhattan, Brian Bernberg. So he's the chair of the program in business and finance there. Brian, the good news is that the economy is doing so amazing.
You can't argue with it.
You cannot argue with that. So we all celebrate that. The issue, though, for many are who really gets credit? Is this the good deeds of President Obama's past 8 years, or indeed is this the result of President Trump and his policies that he's implemented thus far?
Well, let me just say, first of all, a good general always gives credit to the troops on the ground, the men and the women boots on the ground. A good president always gives credit to the men and women on the ground. You've got the small business owners, the business owners, the workers out there creating value. So I think every president should be eager to give them credit first. But when you look at this economy, I mean, President Trump has raised consumer confidence and business confidence to levels that we haven't seen in some cases 17 years. And that's because of the tone he's setting. He's just set a different tone from the White House. And businesses, workers have responded to that, and we're seeing that show up in the job numbers. We're seeing that show up in economic activity.
Let me ask you about the job numbers real quick, Brian, because certainly unemployment, 4.1%,
yeah,
it's as low as it's
17-year low.
Absolutely. However, I do recall, as we've been looking at these job rate numbers over the past 8 years and some change, people speaking about skepticism around what kind of jobs are coming back. So can you speak a little bit about that and what this number reflects around the type of jobs?
Yeah, what's really interesting is this year we've seen a big comeback in manufacturing jobs. That's something the president has talked about since November 2016. We've seen almost 190,000 new manufacturing jobs created in this country. So we do talk about, are these part-time jobs? What's the quality of these jobs? We're actually seeing the kinds of jobs he was talking about coming back. And again, I think it's because businesses, manufacturers are anticipating good things to come. Lower taxes, less regulation makes it easier to invest. That stuff matters, and you're seeing businesses respond to it.
Brian, yesterday in Pensacola, the president talked about, hey, a couple of years I'm up for re-election. If the numbers are like this, it'll be a no-brainer. What would he have to do to make sure that 3% growth stays where it is or goes up? Because we've seen an important rebound, but to keep it there is another thing.
And, that's really important. One of the things I love that he said in this speech is we have a long way to go. He acknowledged that. We're in the first quarter of this game. There's a lot that we need to do to really make this economy strong again, and so he has to be committed to doing that. Tax reform is a big one. You've got to make this continually a friendly environment for businesses. You need new business creation. You need new entrepreneurs. So they've got to get tax reform done. He has to keep pushing on regulation. The start he's made has been unlike any other president. He is pulling back regulation. He is stopping new regulation. But that has to continue because you have to create the space for these new businesses to hire. We need to hire more people because wages still aren't going up as much as we'd like. That's the one thing that's lagging. I think the American people can feel that. More job creation, more economic growth is what gets those wages up.
Hey, Brian, they also talked a lot about trade last night. How important are better trade deals to bringing back our industries here?
We want to trade, and the president has said this. Trade is good for our country. We want to trade on fair terms. And it's true that we have some countries around the world right now, and China is the biggest, who don't have fair trade terms, especially when it comes to things like intellectual property. So that has to change. But the president has been clear. We want to trade. That's a wealth creator, and I think we're going to continue to do that.
Good stuff. Brian Bremberg, professor at King's College. Merry Christmas, sir.
Good to see you guys.
Thanks for being here. All right, coming up, skier Lindsey Vonn promises to represent Americans at the Winter Olympics, but just not the commander-in-chief.
I hope to represent the people of the United States, not the president.
She also said she wouldn't go to the White House. Tomi Lahren is here to respond next.
Plus more trouble for Rob.
Welcome back. Some quick headlines in a Fox News alert. President Trump declaring a state of emergency, ordering federal aid to California as out-of-control wildfires ravage the state. This is the first fire-related death is confirmed. A 70-year-old woman found dead at the site of a car crash along an evacuation route in Ventura County. And the Treasury Department reportedly paid $220,000 in taxpayer money to settle a sexual harassment lawsuit against Congressman Alcee Hastings, according to Roll Call. But in a statement, the Florida Democrat says he was never informed of any settlement. A former staff member of a congressional commission claims Hastings made unwanted advances. Hastings denies the allegations. And Congressman John Conyers resigned this week amid sexual misconduct allegations, and now we're learning his seat won't be filled for nearly a year. Michigan Governor Rick Snyder opting against an early special election, instead having voters decide in the regularly scheduled November election.
Interesting. So no rep for a year?
Okay. Very interesting indeed. Not good for the constituents there. U.S. skier Lindsey Vonn promising to represent Americans at the Winter Olympics, but not every American.
How will it feel competing at an Olympic Games for a United States whose president is Donald Trump?
Well, I hope to represent the people of the United States, not the president. I don't think there are a lot of people currently in our government that do that.
Would you accept an invitation to the White House if you were to win Olympic gold in Pyeongchang?
Absolutely not, no. But I have to win to be invited, so. No, actually, I think every U.S. team member is invited, so no, I won't go.
But for you, it's definitely not?
No.
It's definitely not for Lindsey Vonn. Joining us now with her reaction, Fox News contributor Tomi Lahren. Tomi, thanks for joining us this morning. Okay, so I just want to turn on the Olympics, watch my team, watch my country go win gold. But preemptively, she's telling me, well, but I'm only in not in for President Trump. I'm just in for others, and I'm not going to the White House. What do you say to that?
Well, here's my question. What about the Americans who are Trump supporters that voted for President Donald Trump? Are we not Americans? Does she not want to represent us? I think that these athletes, boy, they just can't help themselves, can they? They have to get political, and they have to say things that not only disrespect the President of the United States, but disrespect so many Americans that are supporting the President, that are supporting their country. It's like patriotism is so foreign to them, they just can't stand it.
Hey, Tomi, let me ask you, do you think, though, everybody's piling on Lindsey Vonn a little bit here, and I want to just ask you, the way that the interviewer, the reporter asked that question, did she sort of lead Vonn to that response?
Well, I think that there's some truth to that, but you can tell by Lindsey Vonn's response that she's pretty sure of her answer already, and she's not going to go to the White House. And she even said, yeah, I know maybe I shouldn't stick my nose in politics, but I still have a voice. I want to be heard. Again, this goes on Lindsay's shoulders there. She chose to make that statement, and I think that the Americans that are Trump supporters, we're going to feel a certain kind of way about that because she had to go and be political and disrespect our president like so many other athletes have done before her.
Now, speaking of other athletes disrespecting presidents, Tommy, let me ask you this. What many call America's quarterback, Tom Brady, right, of New England Patriots, looking again to another almost MVP season. Goodness, that guy can't be stopped. But we know that Tom Brady declined to go to the White House when invited by President Obama when the Patriots won the Super Bowl. So was that also a display, you think, of not being patriotic?
Well, for me, I wouldn't have made that decision, and I do think that that is disappointing. I mean, I think it would be hypocritical for me to sit here and say that some are allowed to disrespect President Obama. I can tell you, even though I was not an Obama supporter, if I was invited to the White House, I would have gone because that is a symbol of American pride. That's patriotism. That's your country. So whether it's President Obama, whether it's President Trump, or God forbid, if it would have been President Clinton, I think we still respect the office of the president, and we respect the Americans that are around us who may not agree with us politically, but they're Americans nonetheless, and we represent our country.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Let's on to some millennial conversations here. It turns out, you know, there's been a lot of conversation about their disposition. Some people like to call them snowflakes. Well, a new survey by the British health insurance firm Aviva found that 72% of 16 to 24-year-olds in the UK believe that the term snowflake is unfairly applied, and it actually affects them negatively, their mental health. So not only do they need safe spaces, but if you tell them they're a snowflake, they need to be even safer.
I think I probably had a lot to do with that because that's one of the terms that I used a lot last election season and continue to use it. And I'm a millennial, and I can say to millennials that are offended by being called a snowflake, or God forbid, their mental health is in the balance because they're being called a snowflake. They need to understand this. Listen to me loud and clear. We need to get over the notion that the worst thing that can happen to us is our feelings are hurt or we're offended. The best way not to be offended by everything is to simply not be offended. Get over it. There are people in all corners of this globe that are dealing with real issues. And if the worst thing that's happening to you is that someone is calling you a snowflake and that's triggering you, my goodness, what a problem to have.
How in the world are we going to beat
Toughen
ISIS?
that self-esteem up,
How are we
right?
going to beat ISIS? All right, thank you for that, Tommy Lauren. We'll leave it right there.
Tommy Lauren, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Tommy. President Trump calling out the D.C. swamp during his rally down in Florida.
This is a rigged system. This is a sick system from the inside.
Dan Bongino says the president is absolutely right. He's up next to explain.
Plus, Congressman John Lewis is skipping today's opening of the Civil Rights Museum in Mississippi because the president will be there. Is the congressman doing a disservice for his constituents and country?
And as Army and Navy face off.
This is a rigged system. This is a sick system from the inside. And, you know, there's no country like our country, but we have a lot of sickness in some of our institutions, and we're working very hard. We've got a lot of them straightened out.
Welcome back. Rigged system. That is, of course, the president has been saying it forever. And last night he has a little bit of armor because a lot of the mainstream media organizations are failing in that respect. We're bringing in Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent, former NYPD officer, and host of the Dan Bongino Show. Dan, I'm just going to guess you might have a little something to say about this.
You guessed right, Grim. Yeah, this is incredible. I'm glad he brought this up, Trump, and he continues to highlight this. Because with regards to this Mueller investigation, guys, Ebony, if you were trying to discredit this operation, I mean, seriously, if you had a checklist going like, how do we make the Mueller special counsel investigation completely irrelevant? Hey, I've got an idea. Let's hire A, B, C, D, and E. It's like they did every single one of these steps. I mean, Trump ran on draining the swamp, not fertilizing the swamp, and that's what they did. They brought a bunch of anti-Trump swamp rats in there to investigate Trump, and now they wonder why no one takes it seriously.
And every piece of investigation points to it. In fact, on Friday, yesterday, the Wall Street Journal reported that Mueller investigator Andrew Weissmann, whose name we've heard many times before, actually attended Hillary Clinton's election night party last November. So, I mean, the Clinton celebration team is now part of the Trump special impeachment counsel team.
Right. So let me get this straight. Weissmann, you know, your pit bull, your go-to guy in the special counsel to attack Trump, was at the election night celebration that turned into a disaster. I mean, was he one of those guys in those videos they put out on election night of all those people at the Clinton headquarters? Is he in the background wiping tears away from his eyes when Hillary lost? And then Pete, even worse, he sends an email to Sally Yates, the number 2, after she defies Trump, unconstitutionally defies a lawful Trump order, celebrating it. Oh, I'm in such admiration, Sally. You're so wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, seriously, Bob Mueller, I mean, with all due respect to his career, this was a really, really bad call. He needs to clean house.
Dan, Griff, Pete, help me out, because some things are complicated, right? And some things I think are very, very simple. I'm thinking if you work in the federal government, right, or state government for that matter, and you know that a part of your job is going to be having to operate in these kind of capacities, don't you think it wise to just extract yourself from the politics of all of that? Yeah, or how about not give those types of campaign donations, or, I don't know, show up at an electoral celebration party that turned into, like you said, an epic disaster, Dan? I just would think preserving one's credibility in those roles would be paramount, but maybe that's just me. What do you think, Dan?
No, you know, Ebony, that's a great question. I mean that, and it's a very sensitive one to me because I was a Secret Service agent for Barack Obama, a job I was very proud of. As you said before, I think I was listening before the break, or Tommy said, I'm sorry, Barack Obama was my president. I disagreed with just about every single thing he did, but I was very proud when I left the Presidential Protection Division to walk in the Oval Office and get photos with my family with him. He's the President of the United States.
Right.
I mean, but when it was my time to get political, I left. I resigned. I gave up my pension, my job. I'm not looking for a pat on the back from anybody in the audience.
But you
That's
protected
just
your
what I did.
credibility. You protected your credibility.
Yeah,
Hey, Dan,
yes, if you want to be a politician, be a politician. You can't be on the inside.
Dan, you talk about credibility. What about, you know, the president got right to CNN and attacked him. We saw CNN walk back that WikiLeaks story. What do you make of that? I got to get you to weigh in on that as a radio show host.
Hey, listen, here's a warning to all of our rather large audience here in the weekend. You know they say wait an hour before you swim when you eat at the beach? Wait at least 1 hour before retweeting any breaking news, bombshells from CNN about the Trump family. I'm just trying to help you out. Pro tip for the day. Guys, this is ridiculous right now with them, right? Here to the media, if you're listening right now, and I know you are, you had one job. Just one job. Your job is just to get the facts right. Could you at least get the date right on this Donald Trump Jr. bombshell? I mean, is CNN the only media outlet in America that thinks you need an encryption key to get on the internet? I mean, they got the date wrong. Guys, the date was the whole story about the WikiLeaks thing. The stuff was already public. Their credibility is you know, it's an insult to used car salesmen to say their credibility is worse than used car salesmen. At least used car salesmen work for
You remember the president created the contest for the very fake news trophy? I think it's just that CNN really wants to be in the running for that. They want to win that.
Oh, my God. You're too much, Pete. Dan,
We got to leave it there. As a journalist, we got to leave it there before we get into more trouble.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're turning now to our morning headlines. We got a chilling new details on a deadly school shooting in New Mexico. A hero substitute teacher barricading 17 students inside a classroom as the carnage unfolded just feet away.
In serious danger, and a few of them said, I don't want to die. And I go, you know what? You're going to be okay.
Disguising himself as a student, 21-year-old William Atchison opened fire at Aztec High School, killing 2 students and himself. Police releasing this note left behind, outlining his schedule for the day. The final entry, 8 a.m. die. During an emergency meeting at the UN, Ambassador Nikki Haley defending President Trump for announcing the U.S. Embassy in Israel will move to Jerusalem. She says recognizing the old city as the capital doesn't diminish peace efforts.
The UN has done much more damage to the prospects for Middle East peace than to advance them. We will not be a party to that.
Meantime, a day of rage unfolding at the West Bank. Palestinians turning to violence just days after the president's announcement. Meet the CIA's newest puppy class graduates. After 4 months of intense training, so cute, Nicole, Indigo, and Lisette Freya are ready to go to work. That's right. In order to graduate, the canines had to pass 2 national certifications to ensure they can detect explosives. Most of the CIA's dogs serve for about 78 years. And those are our headlines this morning.
Very
cool. Dogs.
They're
Very
so
cute.
cute. Not as cute as my Carrie James, but very cute.
And not as cute as Rick Reichman.
Don't call him cute. Don't call him cute.